Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another vlog. This is a Sunit in Conversation vlog. And as you can see, this morning I have McDee with me. What's your surname again? Because I can't pronounce it.
It's Chigodora.
Yes.
Chigodora.
Okay. I want to start with a little story. I'm going to read it about Queen Victoria and the British. When Harry and Meghan accused the British people of racism, which apparently in his new memoir books, they never did. They talk about unconscious bias, and apparently they never meant that it was racism, but it was very obvious that it was racism because for 2 years everybody talked about it since the Oprah interview which they had. And then I went and I looked up a little bit and I came across the story, which reminds me a lot of my relationship with my workers, which I have, which has only been for the last 19 years. You've been with me now for 2.5, and Bulalani has been with me for 17. Before that, there was a little bit of a rotation of workers because I normally used to get somebody that worked for Oma. I didn't have a full-time worker until I took Bulalani in. And then the story came to mind, which is about Queen Victoria. And this actually is proof that there wasn't the level of racism which the woke and the leftist would have liked to accuse the monarchy and the British people of, because of the narrative that Meghan Markle and Prince Harry started. And I'm going to just read it. It's a paragraph or two. Queen Victoria, she was 68 years old. We're now talking of the time period 1887 to 1901. And Karam, I don't know if you pronounce that right, that's an Indian guy, Abdul Karam. My Indian subscribers can correct me. I don't know how they will be able to in the comment section, but maybe they can put it out phonetically for me. And he was 23 years old. Now I'm almost 58 and you are 26. You turned 26 in December. What, 22nd of December? 22nd of December. Almost a Christmas baby. So Karam was in charge of the other Indian servants and responsible for their accounts. And Victoria praised him in her letters and journal. And she had two quotes that I quoted what she had to say about him. I am so very fond of him, was the first one. And then she said, he is so good and gentle and understanding, all I want, and is a real comfort to me. So what I take from that is that their work relationship, servant to masteress, has then changed into a friendship. Unusual friendship that scandalized England in 1897 because it was a young Indian attendant. And there was a book written about this, the real life relationship between Queen Victoria of the United Kingdom and her Indian Muslim servant Abdul Karam. And Victoria and Abdul is a 2017 British biographical historical drama film directed by Stephen Frears and written by Lee Hall. I thought that was an interesting story. And coming back to South Africa, where we have been blamed a lot for apartheid and racism, I think that my generation and older people who had black workers during the apartheid era, which a lot of people actually are oblivious of. They don't know that. In those days, a lot of people, black people, actually slept in. They had sleeping quarters. You still sleep in a lot in Zimbabwe as well, I think, no?
Sleeping quarters, what's that?
Which means that they live on the property, the premises of the white people that they work for. Yes, and they've got like a room or in the back. it just makes it more convenient, basically, so that the black people don't have to travel. Because what did you say to me? Your transport is killing you at this point in time. It's just sucking a huge part of your salary up. So it then becomes more economically viable for you people, especially if you're from the rural areas and you must travel very far, I would say. Yeah. So now it doesn't make sense if you must now go and stay in a bed and breakfast or a hotel or and then you must pay that expense as well if you come from a different part of your country to
stay in a nearby location.
Or in a nearby location like you're doing now. Since post-apartheid, with the government over-regulating the Employment Act, that actually regulates the people out of employment in our country. That's why the people actually prefer to take the Zimbabweans, Somalians, Malawians, Nigerians. Yeah, we actually prefer to employ them over our native Xhosas, Zulus, Tswanas. Huh? Yeah. Yes, because of that. But I do think that in the olden days, a very good relationship, a very respectful relationship actually existed between the white people and the black people that worked for them during the apartheid era. I do think that it wasn't abusive relationships that people actually think it was. I don't think so. And I think it was more or less this type of mentality that I have towards my workers, where I feel if you must clean after me, basically, because that's what you do, you clean after me, then why can't you sit at my table? And why can't you sleep in a bed in my house? Because you are the one that's washing the dishes, you are the one that's cleaning my bathroom. You understand what I'm saying? And now I don't want you to sit on my couch. Doesn't really make sense, hey? Yeah. So I think I have a different mentality as far as that concerned. And a lot of people will think that there is a different relationship between me and my worker, which they cannot be further from the truth. I mean, there was when David started to work for me, he's desperate for a girlfriend. He thinks he's getting too old and that he must find a wife desperately. So when he started to work here, I was desperate trying to find a girlfriend for him. I was looking very, very hard for a girlfriend for him. But I also realized that I can't really, you can't really look for somebody else. Because for instance, there was a lady that worked at the cashier at Spar, which I thought, no, Sunridge Spa. It was Sunridge Spa, which I thought was very, very nice. And then I said, come, you must come to the shop with me. I want to show you this girl. And as we left, he said to me, no, she's wearing too much makeup. Can you remember that?
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, the Sunridge Spa. And I said, really? I thought that you are going to go for these thin, very, very modern looking girls that does the nails and the makeup and the hair. And he said no. And the other day, not so long ago, and I actually said to him, okay, we are going to make, this is not what today's vlog is about, by the way, but I actually said to him that we will make a vlog on that because I thought that was a very interesting cultural difference. Because sometimes or often I drink a lot of coffee and tea during the day. Not so much coffee anymore since I'm trying to keep my heart palpitations down, but more tea. And McDavid said to me, sometimes I will ask for sugar, and then sometimes I will say to him, don't do sugar. And then he asked me, do you want sugar? And I said, yeah, you can my sugar it up. It's got a lot to do with my emotional state as well. if I don't feel too good, then I like to sugar it up a bit. And I said, no, I don't want sugar. And he asked me, why? What does sugar do to you? And I said, well, it makes you fat. Can you remember that kind of stuff? And then what did you say?
Is there anything wrong in being fat?
Yes. And then I asked him, how do they look at their women, their girls? Don't they mind fat or plumpness? And what did you say? What is it in your culture?
Well, they don't mind being fat, and being fat, it means it symbolizes that you are being taken, we are being well kept, you are being well taken care of.
So that actually means that the man is a good provider. That actually equates to wealth.
Yeah.
And then you said you don't like them overly fat, but you don't mind plump. You don't mind plump. You don't want them thin. I'm not talking about you. Not in general, you. What do you like?
For me, I'll just like them in between.
So, not too thin.
Not too thin, not too plump.
How do you like them to dress? Okay, let's go to their hair. It's humid now. It's hot. Now we can't put the fan on because the power is off. Okay, so do you like them to wear their hair naturally in a ethnical African type of hairstyle, or do you like them to put the weaves in or the braids in, or have a more modern hairstyle?
Obviously, we do like them putting the modern style.
Obviously. Really?
Yeah. Okay. I've seen that yours is totally different from the black.
The texture is.
Yours is natural. I haven't seen you putting braids.
No. Yeah. But then your hair grows sort of up when it grows long. Isn't it so?
I don't know.
No, not you, man. Your female, the females, you stay with your aunt.
Yeah.
So it tends to grow up. It doesn't become, as in Afro. It doesn't sort of start to hang and down. So I think that's why they put the weaves and the braids in, so that they can have this type of effect, where the hair can actually hang, that they get the softness here around the face down.
But most of them, they usually put it like this.
Yeah, which is also nice. I love a black woman when they wear their hair in a funky short style. And nowadays, where they actually shave the patterns in, I think that is a very nice modern craze or fashion that actually started, where they actually put little patterns in. Yeah, I actually like that. Okay, so that we know that you like the more modern hairstyle, you don't like makeup, and then dressings. Modest. Okay, so you don't like open stomachs, tiny tops, tight-fitting jeans, pants, ski pants.
It just depends on the type of occasion that you have. I like both. I like both.
What is both?
Both is dress decently or dress
casually, casual down. Okay, yeah.
So depends on what is it that you're doing at the moment, or where you are going, or what is it that you're doing.
Okay, so no, you still haven't answered me about showing some skin.
You have to show some skin when you're going to the beach.
Okay, yeah.
When you're going for a swim or for a jog.
Yes, obviously, then it will be tight fitting. Otherwise, you will fall over your pants.
So I just like both. It depends on what is it that you're doing. It's like I cannot judge someone's like they're saying what you are wearing is not nice when he feels like she's feeling comfortable with whatever it is that he's wearing.
But you must also, as a partner, must be comfortable. It's not nice if you go out with somebody and you feel embarrassed because you think she's inappropriately dressed. Do you ever feel like that? Would somebody be able to make you feel like that?
Yeah, it's possible.
As an older woman, we always say mutton dressed as lamb.
Mutton dressed as lamb?
No, listen to what the saying is. Mutton
Mm.
dressed as lamb. Now,
All right.
mutton is your older meat cut. When your sheep that you slaughter is old, then the meaty stuff, then it's mutton. And lamb is when you slaughter the tiny sheep, which we all know that this is not a conversation actually I should have. But now you get an older woman and she's got she has difficulty accepting the fact that she's getting old, and she doesn't change her dressings accordingly. So she's still trying to dress and be like 20.
All right.
You
All right.
understand?
All right.
And then it looks completely and totally out of place because your texture of your skin is changing and everything is becoming more droopy and wrinkly and spotty, and you just don't look fresh and tight and vibrant and good. And now you are trying to put yourself into the style and the clothes of the younger generation when you are older and more mature, and it doesn't look good. So I would assume that if you now go with somebody my own age and I now try to dress like that, then the guy that I'm with might feel embarrassed. You see, maybe he's decent enough not to tell me so, but he would feel very uncomfortable because everybody else will stare at me in public. Okay, so you think it some situation like that? Now, not with an older woman, obviously, but if you now date somebody and she doesn't dress appropriate, then that will actually be something that you might experience emotion.
Yeah, you definitely.
And how would you handle that? Would you tell her, or would you just not ask her out on a date again?
I will just tell you.
You will?
Yeah. Before we go out, like
before you go out. I'm sorry to say you're going to have a very bad date. It's not going to be a good date.
Or I'll just ask him before we go out that you have to dress something like this.
Oh, she's
If
going.
it is a dress,
She will be offended.
I will buy it.
Maybe if you say, okay, let's go on a shopping trip, yeah, you take her to the mall and then buy something, which is more your style. But if that's a style, that's a style. I mean, that's what she's going to have in a cupboard.
But I think the best way is to communicate, just to let her know.
Yeah, communicate.
She might be offended, but as long as she knows what is happening.
Communication, we always say communicate. Né? Communication is so important. But communication can sometimes be a very delicate, tricky thing because it's not nice to hear the truth often. And truth and honesty can sometimes hurt. And I'm a big believer of truth and honesty because there's no way that you can be in a healthy relationship if you cannot communicate to your partner your likes, your dislikes, your wants, your needs, and that what you don't want or don't appreciate. But it's not nice to hear, for instance. I mean, we have conversations and then I know you go all quiet. And when I ask you questions, you don't answer me because you don't like the answer. When we talk about age difference in a relationship and what is a good a good age difference between a guy of 26 who is already working for a period of time and somebody that is much younger, even if it is in your culture. And and then if it becomes an uncomfortable conversation, then the answers become less and less, and then there will just sort of silence descend, and it will be like a one-sided conversation. Because I know if you answer, it's going to hit too close to the truth. And because you're not a stupid person, you know that there's merit in what I'm saying, but you don't really want to do what is required in the situation. Yeah, it's true. So that's why I say conversations can often be uncomfortable, although we always stress how important it is. But it can be hurtful and uncomfortable. And then a person must be able to be mature enough to go past that, and then your relationship will grow, I think. But yeah, it's not always nice to hear the truth, or to hear, especially if we strive to please our partners. Nah, it it's not nice to hear that there's some stuff that he doesn't like. Yeah, yeah, and you don't know it, and now you hear it straight. You know, you're being told, and you can adjust and change that, but it still doesn't make it any easier.
So how do you solve all
By communicating, by being mature, by realizing that people are different. You know, we are not the same. No two people are exactly the same, and they often also say, "What is the saying? Do you know the saying? Opposites attract."
or opposites attract?
That's what they say.
Like because
No, like attract.
like attract.
Yeah,
Opposites
opposites attract. Like a positive and a negative, electricity will attract. Two positives will push away, two negatives will push away. That's the saying. Whether it's a proven fact, I don't know so much if being too opposite. I don't know. I can't really say. I would say that's questionable, because I think maybe too similar can cause problems, but I think you must. Is opposite attract really equal to compatibility?
Opposite.
Yeah, is that, can you equal it to being compatible, where you actually get along with somebody? If somebody is so different, I actually think that that is not a correct saying in our language, because
If
if
someone is different from you,
too different,
you're two different people.
yeah,
You must agree on certain things.
a balance. So, say for instance, I'm a nature lover. I like to go for nature walks and hikes. And he just wants to look at rugby and TV all the time. He's a sport fanatic in that way. That's going to cause a lot of fights. So, yeah. So, I think that that's not, that saying is not cemented very well in reality, because a lot of our language, the sayings in our language, actually comes from a real situation which keeps on recurring, and then it becomes like a proverb or a saying, you know. But if you really think about it in relationship, then that's not a very good one. What is a good age, your age in your culture, where you must now have a girlfriend and get married?
Okay. There is no specific age of getting married, but there is a legal requirement whereby you are supposed to, if you are a man, if you are a woman, you're supposed to get married above 16, about 16, 18. I think it's 18. 18 is
in your culture, because in the black culture is very different. Because I don't know Zimbabweans and with your Christian faith, but our Xhosas and Zulus can have more than one wife, for instance, and that's like a complete and total no-no for white people. And you guys?
No, we don't do polygamy.
You don't do polygamy at all? Okay.
But there are certain churches that do so in Zimbabwe.
In Zimbabwe, certain churches?
Especially the white garment churches.
The white what?
White garment churches.
Oh, the white garment churches. Is that like the Mormons?
The ones that goes in the mountains and wearing white garments.
Yeah, I know the white garment, but what kind? What Zions?
Zions.
Is it Zions? Really?
Not Zions, but there are some
like that.
Like that, yeah.
Okay, I don't really know what the Zion faith is all about, what they stand for. Okay, but you not. I know that you're a Christian. Okay.
So it's only the legal requirement where you are supposed to get married, but anyone can get married at any particular age.
And what is your culture as far as lobola? Do you must you pay lobola?
Yeah, lobola.
Do you?
Yeah, we do.
Are you serious?
And it's a requirement.
Even if you are in the city, like you guys.
Yeah.
So, like what? Does it depend on? Does it depend on the quality of the girl that you choose, or how do they determine Okay, let's just hear. What is lobola?
Okay, lobola is just a token of appreciation to the family of a woman, of taking care of her since she was young up until the old age, whereby all the school fees and if she has a degree and everything. So I think it's also depends on the amount that you are going to pay. It depends on what is it that she is.
Okay, what she has achieved in life.
What she
Are
has
you
achieved.
serious?
Yeah, yeah. You
Yeah.
cannot you cannot pay something that is less to someone who has got a degree.
I never
and,
ever knew that.
and someone who doesn't even have, like, let's say he has standard, what, I don't know, let's say,
So what the parents actually do is they pass the whole life expense of that woman onto the future husband.
exactly,
That's
that's
so
what they do.
unfair. What
But
responsibility do they then have as parents? As parents, surely
mm,
for having the joy of having that child, you must be grateful that you had that child and
mm,
and be happy that that was your financial responsibility, but now they
mm,
let the poor man
mm,
pay for it.
yeah, and it also depends on the if you are a poor or something. That's why most of them they get married to. When you are poor, you also get married to someone who is poor.
High
When you are,
shame. Are you
yeah,
serious?
yeah. Unless you are lucky to find someone who doesn't want your money, or someone who wants to
Now,
be
where would you
rich.
find somebody like that? That would say, okay, we'll go, okay, son, we'll pass on the lobola. Would somebody say that?
Yeah, these days it's happening. These days it's happening. We have to convert the value of a cow into money
Are you
sometimes.
serious?
Yeah, serious. First of all, okay, for it, just entering the discussion there. Money for the mom, they'll ask money for the father, they'll ask money for the relatives, the
Yes,
aunties, and
because there's
everything.
normally relatives. I just wanted to say it's not only the father that sits there, there's normally the uncles. It's like a whole panel
So
of family elders. Now,
actually,
am I correct?
yeah, they'll actually gather. It's a group of people that you can.
Very intimidating for a young guy to go in there.
But these days, when they see that the guy doesn't have a lot of money, they will just charge him according to what he is.
But you would now think that you now have the responsibility, especially with life that has become so expensive, to now provide a house, which you
Mm,
obviously would not ask your parents to do, all the furniture and the necessities like a fridge and a stove and the TV and the electricity bills in South Africa is ridiculous. All those expenses now come down on the new husband.
mm,
Plus, you would want maybe a nice wedding ceremony, which
mm.
is so expensive. And I often ask, Bulalani was with his girlfriend from the from grade 8 in
Mm.
school. They were together. From grade 8, the mother of his child, he had one little girl uh, with her, and he was very upset when it happened. For a
Mm.
very long time, they didn't have children, and he was washing the dishes, and he said to me, "Did you tell me what happened?" I said, "No." He said there was a big accident. I looked at him. I thought he was going to do this horror story. He said his girlfriend's pregnant,
Mm,
and he was over that little girl. He really was over that little girl. And one of the times that I took him home, we were having a conversation in the car, and I said to him, You've been with Nompi so long, are you going to get married?" And he said, "Well, he can't afford it
mm,
because he doesn't have that kind of money to pay the bola." And then I think actually, from a Christian faith point of view, it's actually doing the that what's the word that I'm looking for, that you have in your culture, is actually causing a lot of people to then never get married, to
oh
live in
yeah.
sin,
Mm, 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 mm.
because the poor guy cannot afford the
Cannot understand.
lobola.
Mm.
So then you might rather carry on in sin, because you can't actually get to the stage where you are financially stable enough or strong enough to actually get married, which is sad in a way. Which I can't understand, which for me is difficult to understand, that if you have become urbanized and as we are mixing, you know, culturally mixing, and the society is more diverse and we, yeah. Can I use the word more civilized? I've been trying to talk around the word there, more civilized. And then you are coming and you saying it. Okay, you said it, not me.
Because you cannot continue doing all those kind of things when other people are.
Exactly. A person would have thought that something like that would change. Because your life is now different. You're not rural. You're not on the farm. You don't have the goats. You don't have the cows and the sheep. And life for you is just as expensive now as for me and the person next to me. You understand? So a person would have thought that you would then take on more of those habits and then realize that some of that very traditional habits is not sustainable anymore, and then let it go. A person would assume, or a person would think, but that's not the case. For instance, the Xhosas, I don't know if it's like that with you people, the Shonas, no? You Shona? Yeah, from Zimbabwe. They must go through what would the word now? Like an initiation into manhood. Where they paint their faces and their bodies. Then they must go in the bush, and then they must now hunt little animals there, which we don't really want them to do. We don't want our little wild buck life that we still have in the rabbits and the stuff. We don't want them to be hunted. You know, we conserve our wildlife, especially around your urbanized areas, because we drive them out, like the guinea fowl that's here, you know, and people that don't want the guinea fowl here, but the whole Willow Road area is now being cleared to build. You know which Willow Road? That long, yeah. And now they're coming further down and further down in Circular Drive. So where must the animals go? This is about the third time on a video that I'm asking, where must the animals go? So we don't want them to catch the tortoises. You know that our people cook tortoises. You do know. We don't want them. The real mountain tortoises are an endangered species.
So they actually eat tortoise.
They eat tortoise. They eat anything. I don't want to say like the Chinese, but they do, you know. And then when they go for that initiation process period of time into the bush, because they now don't go into the bush, they will just go into a little area which is like in the middle of a built-up area where there's now trees and whatever, then they will go in there, and that's where they will stay. And that's actually, Bulelani came to me right after his initiation process. His face was still painted. I can remember the clothes that he had on. He had a corduroy, what we call corduroy, camel-colored jacket on, and he had a khaki type of pants, but it was very short. It was like halfway white pair, because he's a tiny little guy. It was a white pair of pants, and it was like halfway up between his calf and his ankles. I used to tease him about it. He just came out of the initiation process, and then they get circumcised. In the bush. No, not always, and often there's a lot of casualties. They get infection, and then it will come into the news media when there's now a percentage of deaths that occur.
I hate that some of them don't come back.
Yeah, my mom had a little boy. He was almost a midget, a little person, yes, and Johnny was his name. and he's dead now. He died a couple of years, many years ago already, when they were still my parents were still staying in Cape Road. And he said when he went, you know, a funny story to tell here on a YouTube channel, but he said when he went for his initiating ceremony, and he was circumcised. They cut off the foreskin and they threw it on the ground, and then the ants started to eat it, and he thought there's no way that he was going to allow the ants to eat it, so he picked it up and he swallowed it. True story.
So they don't put it somewhere. Or...
It doesn't seem to be. You know, you get these visions that it's like this rock altar type of a thing, and then they just sort of slice it off. I don't know. I don't know what happens. It's sort of secretive.
But I don't see any use. Maybe it's their culture or
whatever. It is their culture. It is definitely their culture. But my whole point is now going off on that tangent. A person would think that becoming more civilized, using your word, that is a tradition. That's the word I was looking for. That is a cultural tradition that would now be done away with. You know, do what other people do. When the mother gives birth in the hospital, you make the decision whether you want your baby to be circumcised or not, so that the doctors can perform it in a sterile medical environment. You know, that is the more modern, non-Xhosa traditional option that there is that they can take, but they don't. And you know, so when will that change? If we can racially integrate, which is something that never used to happen in the past, then surely change can happen.
Yeah.
You understand? So why can you only change in that little bubble, but as far as the wider things are concerned, they hang on? You know, it's tradition. It's our tradition. We cannot change. The same thing that upsets a lot of white people. Let me now call the racial divide what it is, because a lot of black people are now able to come and stay in what used to be the old and white areas. And now a person don't know if they do it on purpose, because they know that is something that 99% of white people will get upset about it. But certain events in Xhosa's lives, they will kill a bull or a pig. And then they will now do it. Say, for instance, somebody is my neighbor, they will now do it here next to me. And then they kill them in the most horrific ways. That animal must suffer and it must bleed out slowly. And you know me, McDavid, it will drive me nuts if I must hear an ox or a cow or a pig squealing or an ox bellowing in pain because his throat is being cut, and that whole ceremony is going on for a whole day. I think it will actually put me in a mental institution. I will not be able to survive that. But then there's normally huge fights over that because white people don't want that. Now you must call in the animal anti-cruelty societies and the people that can prevent that, and to try and stop that. And now it's racists and you're a racist. And now there's animosity between you and your black neighbors, which could have been prevented if you could have just respected the fact.
Yeah.
But now they say you must respect their culture. But it's such a cruel part of the culture, which a person like I wouldn't survive it. I'm telling you, I would not survive it. I will not survive it. Can you imagine how it will upset the dogs and the cats? Because they sense and feel death. You can see it with with the animals that die, you know, yeah, their friends and the other animals, how they take it. You can see that they know that there
Yes,
is
someone is
someone is not
taking.
exactly. Okay, so this has now turned out a very long vlog, but on that note, I think that I'm now going to end this vlog. Thank you for being with us today. I'm going to do another vlog with you in it. Thank you for being with us and sharing very interesting cultural detail from your point of view. And yeah, anything you want to say in closing?
Yeah, I just want to say, guys, keep on subscribing. We love you. Bye.
Look after yourselves. Goodbye.